Well, hello, episode 11 of Crashing In Podcast, and today I'm joined with band from Wolverhampton, Goddamn, one of my favourite bands from Wolverhampton. Thanks to those who listened to last week's episode of Emily 7, really happy with the views and the subscribers that was gained after that video. It was just amazing, really. It was just, I think so far we're 80 something listeners. Got 17 likes on the video. I think the most likes I got on a video on Crashing In Podcast, and the subscribers came from like about 30 to 45. I did set a target, 50 subscribers, so hopefully after this video this will put you in the mood to put it up and help me get it up to 50, maybe even 60. That'd be great if you can get it up to 60 subscribers. And yeah, let's keep it going, man, and please get the podcast out there. So over to Goddamn now.
I am Tom from the band Goddamn. Geographically, the band's from Wolverhampton and it always has been. However, I live in Cannock. Oh, how have things been in the music scene? Well, Wolverhampton's got like kind of a bit of an oscillating music scene. It's all based around the lockups in Wolverhampton, the old factories and stuff, and there's some great bands in and around there. We share a lockup with a band called Bruiser, who are great. We share with the Nightingales. They're on the same kind of complex, and there's loads of other great bands. There's a new band called Herbals, who are next door to us. So far as that like micro kind of scene, it's really good. But you know, expanding out to like the Birmingham area and surrounding areas where a lot of bands tend to congregate, it's been like a really healthy scene that's been around for some years. You know, we're all old friends. If you think about bands like Black Mekon and Table Scraps and all that kind of web of bands, Hoopla Blue, Mutes, who James is in the band. He plays in the band Mutes, also a great Birmingham band. There's loads of great bands on the scene, and you know, we try and go to each other's gigs when we can. So that's, you know, it's all fairly healthy, and we're all, you know, there's no weird little rivalries or anything like that. We're all grown up and stuff. It's quite a nice time. There's definitely points where before we got signed and stuff where there was, you know, a real vibe to the Wolverhampton scene. You had bands like Double Happy and Pickled Eggs, and there was, you know, loads of great little Wolverhampton bands. And we used to put on little lock-up gigs. A band, for example, like Women used to have great little lock-up shows and stuff, and we'd all go to each other's shows in and around Wolves and Birmingham. There's definitely like a few years ago like a real high point to that, but you know, we've all got older and stuff, and we're all still firm friends. But you know, it's you go to each other's gigs when you can, but you know, it's not as intense as when you were younger and all hanging around and partying and all the other paraphernalia that come with it. Last proper gig was the Shackwell Arms in London, February time, so not far before the virus kind of hit their shores, and it was sweaty and intense and too many people, you know, like in the room. It was, you know, 200 capacity venue, and there's 250 odd more than that in there, you know, really rammed, sweaty, intense contact sport kind of show. You know, people were sharing sweat and getting very close to each other, and it's hard to imagine that happening right now. It seems like a million miles away, even though a million years ago, even though it's not so long ago. So hopefully we can get back to that. in the not too distant future, whether that be the end of the year or, you know, the coming months or next year. That's fine. It will happen again, and people will love it. I can imagine people being a bit dubious before and a bit, you know, careful. But people want that back, I'm sure. Well, myself and Ash have been together since we were 18, so that's... I'm 31 now, do the maths, 13 years. And in various formats, Goddamn, or various lineups of Goddamn and other bands and stuff. And, you know, we're two very different people, but we get on well together, and personally as friends and musically, and, you know, we know each other inside out, we know each other's buttons, not what to press, not to press, all that kind of stuff. And we've got a really good friendship. I can't really imagine playing with another drummer. I mean, I've got other favourite drummers that I'd like to play with, but logistically, you know, it's just easy with Ash. Goddamn, I've been going for about 10 years this summer. Not that we're going to mark the occasion, it's a bit of a weird time to do it. Well, me and Ash met... Actually, first time I saw Ash play was in Cannock at a club called Warheads, and he was playing drums. And I actually came up and drummed for his band, and we didn't really cross paths. I was kind of hanging around with other people, and then he joined a different band who I was very good friends with. I saw him play, and I was just like fell in love with his playing. And we both knew that we'd be in a band together. I played his 18th birthday. I remember playing some the Transport Working Men's Club in Wolves. Played his 18th birthday, and you know, we knew from watching each other that we were like meant to play together. And, you know, people have come and gone over the years and stuff, but we've always, you know, been that strong love affair. Just watching too much MTV2 when I was a kid, and wanting, what was the attraction? I think initially it's probably like, oh, here's an identity, it'll, you know, help me get laid or something when I was a little kid. And maybe that's a bit cheesy and whimsical to say that, but maybe there's something in that. But I mean, it's just that kind of identity. I felt like punk rock was kind of calling me, and rock and roll, and that kind of lifestyle, and be it big or small adventures, it kind of provided a little path for me and a sense of identity. Well, there's an ex-member of ours called Dave Copson, who was in a great band called Mellotron Overdrive from Wolverhampton, and I wanted to make music like him, and then he was in the band at one point, and from the kind of start of the band, kind of helped start the band. And yeah, let's have a look back at that question. Who inspired me? Sorry, I'm going to have to keep opening my phone. Local bands, you know, there's a band like The Big Bang and Sunset Cinema Club, and there was loads of great local bands that made me want to play and be involved in that scene and be a part of that scene and muscle my way in. But bands before, I mean, stuff like Nirvana and Mudhoney and so many bands that inspired me to do it. Caius was a big one when we started this band. Well, my first ever gig was like an end of year thing at school when I was about 13, the summertime. There was a little end of year concert that I went to Wolverhampton High School in Penkridge, and they had this little end of year concert called Rock and Pop, and I basically formed a band to play in that before I could even really play guitar that well. And I remember being the most nervous I'd been in a while, but like stupidly excited, and it being this huge release. And then outside of that, you know, we used to do little village hall gigs and put on little shows at lunch times and in the hall at school and things like that. But my first proper gig was at the Little Civic in Wolverhampton, and I was 15 or 16, and it was just a monumental thing to go and play the Little Civic. I'd be there whenever I could, watching unsigned bands, big bands, small bands and stuff. Bands that were tiny and went on to be huge, I saw go through the Little Civic, and all I ever wanted to do after forming a band was like play the Little Civic. And you know, I think we played there the week after We Are Scientists played, and I'm wearing an I Are Scientists t-shirt. And I love that show. I just remember being like summoning superhuman strength to what I didn't know I could possess to put on the best show we could. And it was probably shit, but like I remember being on a massive high from that, you know. And I remember it like being a thing in the school of like, oh, you know, we were the band that kind of broke the mould of like getting our asses in gear and playing a show outside of school and outside of the village halls, and we were admired and hated for it, and not much has changed. It was a Morrissey song, not that I think it's great. Actually, I think it's a great song. I don't really like Morrissey as a person. You know, your friends hate it when you're successful, and you can kind of sniff them out. You can see it in their eyes. You know, you can see who's loathing you for those kind of things, and who's like, he's a friend, I'm happy for him, you know. So you can see those a mile off. I like the struggle. I like the kind of feeling of punk rock more than I like the feeling of rock and roll, you know, getting up there and setting your gear and stuff. Don't get me wrong, there's been times where we've been more rock and roll, cliche kind of quote unquote, where, you know, somebody set up our gear for us and carried it around and stuff. There's been those moments, but I also like the trudge of it. I like the reality, I like the intensity, I like the honesty of it all. There's some boring times, but I like, you know, going and seeing different cities and stuff. Not that you really get that much of a chance to do it. I like, you know, really honing things in and putting on the best show you can on tour is sometimes better than playing to loads of people and being admired and lapping up the success. There's definitely been times where, you know, when the two are together and you're like, there was a vibe there and everybody's enjoying it and you were feeding off each other and stuff, and you play incredibly well and it takes you to the next level. That's the ideal position. But then sometimes, you know, you go to some towns and you play to loads of people and you put on a shit show and you're like, oh, I fucking hate myself. And then sometimes you're like, you know, put on a great show and there's one man and his dog there and you're more satisfied with that, you know. Loads we've been on tour with Red Fang, and we've supported the Foo Fighters, we've supported the Cribs, we've supported gone on tour with Frank Hart and the Rattlesnakes. Loads, just loads, more than I ever thought we would, which was nice. But we've learned that, you know, you've kind of got to do it on your own, off your own back, and find your own little groove, you know. I think we became that band that people just assume they'd see us on tour with somebody, and we're kind of trying to break away from that a bit. Well, the first time we properly did it, I mean, it depends who you talk to. We've got our first kind of group of songs is a group of songs called Demonstration, which we did in the New Hampton Arts Centre, which we kind of, it's like our little bolt hole in Wolverhampton of a studio with Ryan Pinson, and we kind of got an album's worth of songs together. And that was just the easiest thing ever, you know, just it's like making it in your front room with your best mate Ryan, you know, and it wasn't daunting at all. And then I guess we've first ever album. Then there was, I guess, the first proper release for Goddamn album was Vultures, and we made that in a big fancy studio. We almost made it at Toe Rag, which was where the White Stripes did Elephant, and we decided against doing it there for a number of reasons. Not all my choice. So I remember being intimidated by like a proper old school Abbey Road style tape and all that kind of stuff, but we just nailed it. It was dead quick and dead easy. And then when we did Vultures in Metropolis, it was quite a long process, really. I've never found working with anybody in the studio intimidating. That's like one of my favourite places to be. I think because I've spent so many years in recording studios, big and small, and with big producers and little producers, I've kind of stopped getting that red light syndrome. I've seen it in other people. And it's something that I'm kind of proud of, in the fact that I just kind of... recording's really easy for me. I think sometimes doing vocals can be a bit of a testing time, but you know, your voice isn't an instrument you can tune like a guitar. Sometimes you have good days and bad days, you know. So yeah, there's plenty online about how we did our records. How long did it take the first record? Oh, weeks and weeks and weeks. The most recent record we did in 3.5, 4 days. So you just get better at getting faster and knowing about what you want sound-wise, and better at playing your instruments and things. I mean, that first album was purposefully drawn out and long and kitchen sink approach. First album, I remember definitely being that like first album band thing, you know, Vultures, and it having a load of press and stuff, and there being a buzz around it and things, but it's kind of maintaining that, and we've never really been a buzz band at all. I think there was definitely a time on the local scene, there was definitely a time before we got signed where there was a buzz, there's a bubble, like things were bubbling. And I always say this to bands about like, trying to get a record deal and trying to get an agent and trying to get people interested. If people are interested, they'll come. You know, don't send your demo tape or demo CD to record labels. I think there was definitely a time where, you know, we put out this little tape ourselves, did DIY stuff, and we had major labels buying our music, buying our merch, you know. And you shouldn't stress yourself that they're either not interested and that you're not buying it, or you shouldn't stress yourself to go out and send it to people. Yeah, be proactive and get people to your shows and create a vibe for your band and create a community, and naturally, you know, not like crass kind of manipulating people. Just keep it really natural and have your thing, and if it's good enough, people will come. There's definitely been moments where I haven't been in a buzz band, you know. But, you know, there's definitely times with this band where we've had to fight to get people to listen to it. But there's definitely, by and large, the buzzy time, the bit where people are interested, they'll just come to you. So get over yourself. No, I'd say it's more like a return to form. I think it's more like it's the most goddamn sounding record we've ever done. And it's on a par with our earlier stuff, but more mature and more bombastic, I think, really. Sylvia did a great job of bringing that out of us by just making us play live and keeping things raw rather than overproducing stuff. I mean, there's a time and a place for overproducing stuff, and I love our first two records. The tour it's a shame, really, because obviously because of the virus, everything's been stunted for everybody, so can't feel particularly personally impacted by it, but really impressed with the tour for the first record, the most recent record. You know, we kind of half expected people to be not bothered about us anymore, and people came out like never before and went more ape shit, and we just had the best headline tour we ever had. Maybe except for like the one show in Leeds where there was, you know, a bunch of hipsters on their phones, but I think that's just the way some places are, you know. First night of tour, I remember being like, oh, the room's full and people shouldn't like our music, but they're all here and I'm totally flattered, you know. And then obviously, you know, all the other shows were great. Well, the thing is, between the two albums, I was kind of constantly demoing, so we were just constantly recording anyway. You know, there's like 30 songs, and, you know, we'd span it out for sure and leave stuff and come back to it and things, but it didn't really feel like there was a gap creatively at all. I don't think there's ever really been that gap there, you know. I kind of do things in big splurges, you know. Like right now I'm in album writing mode, or I've got to get this bunch of songs, or I've got this concept going on. But it wasn't really like, you know, putting it down. There was, you know, the album was recorded a while ago and we'd been sitting on it a long time, and that was quite difficult. And it was really nice to come back and play. You know, we deliberately held off and picked the right time, and of course, you know, all this happened, and but, you know, it is what it is. No, that was done way after the album, and it was just something we did in the lockup. I recorded the drums for it and stuff and bits and pieces, and it was just a DIY recording, really scratty thing that was nothing to do with the record and nothing to do with any kind of new direction or anything like that. It was just Ash humouring me with, oh, can I try this weird little recording technique on your drums, because we haven't got band practice this week. And he kind of humoured me on that, and it just felt like an alright time to put it out because there's nothing else going on for people, and we just kind of shat it out, and it was, I actually quite like how the song turned out. Well, there's some rock and roll stories I can't tell you. We've trashed a hotel room before, but that was because I basically kicked the door down from a hotel room because we got locked out and there was no night porter. And I was, you know, had a skinful. And our tour manager was like, I think we can bust it open if you just kick the door handle. And before he even finished what he's saying, I kicked the door handle and it didn't open. The whole door just came off its hinges. And we slept in a hotel room with the door broken. And we had a very angry hotel manager the day after. And then there's a bunch of stuff that I probably shouldn't talk about. Is there anything else like no? I don't think so. Just go to goddamntheband.com and yeah, you're right there. Thank you for joining the podcast. Hope you can edit that alright, mate. I'm mumbling and quiet and close to it because I don't want you to pick up noise in the background. Some good questions there. Thank you very much, mate. Take care.
Stuck in on a dead road.
thank you everyone for listening to today's podcast episode. Been brilliant being joined by Goddamn, because for a while now I was meant to do a podcast. I think it was over the year, I think it was a year ago or something like that. I asked them to do a podcast, but it just never happened because when I asked them, their latest album wasn't out, so they didn't really want to do that far before the album came out. So, but then I lost track because I was interviewing loads of different bands and that. But finally, we've got a podcast with Goddamn, and thank you so much for joining me. And it's been a pleasure having you on, and hope you all keep safe and that. And yeah, as I was saying earlier, people that are listening, if you're new listening to the podcast, this is what I do usually. I interview bands from not just the West Midlands, but all over the gaff, really. Had bands from Ireland, America, and all sorts now. I've from up north where I am now, and yeah, so keep in tune for more podcast episodes like this. And yeah, it's great to have so many bands on as well. There's not a band I had on yet that's been a rubbish band. Every band I had on has been brilliant. They're brilliant musicians and that. And I always reach out to bands that I just think are amazing. And yeah, every band I ever interviewed are amazing. I had bands that was in the punk scene that toured with some of the great bands like the Slits and all that, and some bands from the mod revival scene and that, and it's just been a brilliant journey so far. And yeah, I can't wait to get back to normal interviews where I'm talking to them in a pub or something like that, because just missing meeting bands and that, missing just what I used to do really. It's just, for now, it's just been interviews where I'll give them the questions, I record it from now, and it's good because yeah, I'm editing it still and getting to know these bands, but it's a bit more fun when we're together, and it's a bit more harder to ask questions over text compared to being there and just asking them there and then. So I can't wait to get back to that, and yeah, hopefully that'll be very soon. Unfortunately, we're still in isolation. I thought we'd be out ages ago, but never mind. I have to admit, missing going to gigs, missing meeting people in general, and missing Stylish Records in Wolverhampton as well, man. It's just brilliant going to the Dog and Doublet and that. It's just little things like that I'm just missing at the moment. I'm missing having a haircut because my hair looks like the fella out of A Flock of Seagulls. And if you haven't heard of my podcast with the fella from A Flock of Seagulls, it's on YouTube, so give it a listen. It's a good way of getting it out there. And yeah, I just want to say, please like and subscribe, and there's a notifications button, so when I upload, it will come up on your phone that I uploaded and that. So please, and I'm going to start a Patreon very soon, and yeah, it's just, I'm just being slow with it. I'm trying to get the podcast more out there and that. On SoundCloud, it's not on SoundCloud anymore because I didn't really do well on SoundCloud, and I had been told by loads of people that it's very hard to access and all that. So I just started putting it on YouTube, and also I don't need to pay for YouTube, so I don't know why I was putting it on SoundCloud in the first place. Nothing against SoundCloud, by the way. So see you all later. Take care.